nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think it would be appropriate if we had a moment of silence for the students who were lost in Florida and the families and the tragic situation down there. Thank you. We're going to be reviewing the budget and follow up some of the questions from the last meeting. We do have on the agenda possible action, so that if the board wanted to add something to the budget, take something out, that could be done. But we will not be acting on final approval of the budget tonight. That will await our next meeting. And again, as at the last meeting, if the public would be kind enough to hold their comments or questions until we finish going through the budget ourselves. I'd like to welcome April Kearns and Katie Merriman from the RTM to our meeting tonight. Okay, Tom, you want to follow up on the last meeting?
Sure. Certainly last week, I gave a full overview of our team's recommended budget. Tonight I'll review more high-level information, kind of an executive summary, certainly answer any follow-up questions, presenting some of the same information but in a different way. Last week we really focused the budget presentation on the objects in the budget or broad categories, i.e. salaries, benefits, things like that. I wanted to give a brief presentation on the departmental breakdown. So what does it look like from a building and grounds perspective or an IT perspective or a curriculum perspective? So I do have some slides in that area as well. As I mentioned last week, the proposal is a 2.15% budget. As I mentioned last week, that 1.88% is tied into fixed costs and contractual obligations. Those are things such as our bargaining unit contracts, benefits associated with those, whether they're contractual benefits, health insurance, other things that fall into that category would be fuel, heat, energy, transportation, tuition, things of that nature. The other things in the budget where we really make decisions comprise a 0.27% increase, or about $128,000, and that's how we get to 2.15%. As I mentioned last week, it is a 2.15%. We are absorbing a reduction in community use of schools funding, which equates to 0.18. And again, it's an MOU and a concept which I wholeheartedly support and believe is the right decision. But it does have a fiscal impact on our budget. Without the absorption of that community use of schools funding, we are below 2% in this budget. I mentioned last week a variety of budget needs in this budget that allow us to continue to achieve the board's goals, as well as other priorities such as our strategic plan. Within this budget are things such as software to support goals in the strategic plan, other curricular objectives around social studies. Certainly the maintenance of our facilities is extremely important, as well as things such as text and instructional supplies. So far this is all redundant information, but we do have new people here tonight, so I want to make sure that I covered that. Within this budget, we did reduce 98 lines from this current year's budget. Some of those significant reductions are in the areas of tuition. We spent some time last week talking about our efforts to reduce that line and make sure that we are making every effort we can to keep students in our district. We are reducing legal services. We will see less time-consuming negotiations next fiscal year. Insurances, this really centers around fire, liability, property insurance, things of that nature. We saw favorable negotiated rates in those those areas, and then there are some other notables. 53% of all lines in this budget are reduced or flat. That's obviously over half the lines. As I mentioned, I wanted to also provide budget information from a departmental perspective. I want to do that looking at non-personnel lines, those lines that comprise each of the various cost centers in our budget that are non-personnel related. So you can see elementary school's budget, that's primarily the social studies curriculum field trips, field experiences that comprise that. Funding overall at Clark Lane will be down heading into fiscal 19. Waterford High slightly up. Special services slightly up, mainly in the area of funding special ed costs at our magnet and charter placements. Building and grounds, slight increase over this current fiscal year, mainly in the area of some supplies and contracted services. IT, encompassed in that line is the software proposal to support the strategic plan, and professional learning slightly down just due to some various cost factors. So digging a little bit deeper for the elementary schools, again, as I mentioned, under the largest increase is under the elementary field trips. Of the $27,000 increase, $25,000 of that is to support those curricular objectives associated with field trips. The dues and fees is up slightly, as I mentioned last week. Oswegatchie, for the last 4 years, has used a behavior tracking tool to really look at where behavior is occurring in the building, and we are expanding that to our other 3 K-8 schools. Clark Lane Middle School, as I mentioned, funding down slightly from this current fiscal year, mainly some reductions in the areas of equipment repair and supplies. Most other lines flat funded. Looking at Waterford High as a cost center, up slightly, $12,000. You can see contracted services, athletics, that is for our athletic training. Contract transportation up slightly, that's a 3% increase on what we use to support our athletic team's travel. Supplies, textbooks, modest increases in library equipment, dues and fees. Looking at special services, reduction in the funding of the wages that we budgeted for our students who are 18 to 21-year-old workers. Labor laws do require us to pay them if they are working in a vocational setting. We anticipate spending less in that area next year. Tutors, contracted services, teacher of the blind, down slightly. Again, contracted services and evaluations. Again, that is really costs associated with providing services to special education students who receive services outside our district. Transportation for special education up again, we went out a bit last year. That reflects contractual increase. Building and grounds, as I mentioned, up slightly. The maintenance of our buildings is obviously an important requirement for us each and every year. Equipment and repairs up slightly. Custodial supplies, equipment maintenance and service contracts up as well. Many of these to really closer reflect what we spend year in and year out. T&IT, total increase of about $46,000. About $37,000 of that is software to support our strategic plan and the implementation of a district data dashboard, and some equipment increases support the technology plan. Again, some of this also is a reduction in E-rate funding, which is a state grant we received to offset the cost of some of our internet and mobile services. Looking at professional learning, the 2 major lines, professional development and curriculum development, flat funded, slight reductions in conference and meetings. So much of the same information all of it is the same information as last week. just really packaged, looking at it from a cost center or location perspective. You'll see that outside of fixed costs and contractual obligations, this department has been extremely conservative and responsible in their requests. Many items, school level, funded or reduced. So again, that's very similar information to last week, but again, looking at it from a different perspective. I don't know if the chair would like to go through once again each of the series level detail and see if there's any follow-up questions.
First of all, any questions or comments based on Tom's presentation tonight? Okay, why don't we start with the instructional services. Does the board have any questions for the administration?
We're on page 7 and 8, and then following pages after that.
On this series?
7, 8 under detail.
Well, just starting with instructional services. Any place within this?
Yes, after the executive summary. Yep.
So we're going basically pages 7 through 15.
Any clarity I could provide the board?
Would this be an appropriate time, since those pages are on actual teacher positions, to talk about class sizes?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Tom, for getting us the class sizes as the board requested last week. And having been an administrator, I don't want to say this position should be cut or this position should be cut. I think that's the purview of the superintendent, the administrative team. But I did see quite a bit of low class sizes at the high school. Some of those might be artifacts from the scheduling process, but I do see movement where we could, if we needed to, if the board supported, a half a position here and a half a position there.
You're an administrator, as you mentioned, and certainly if there's detailed level information we want to talk about, Mr. Hauser is certainly here.
Right.
Anytime you're scheduling a high school, it's not a perfect science, because you have a variety of students who need different courses at different times. The other thing I would comment is high school class sizes tend to be smaller with the more high-level courses that you offer. Those classes tend to be less enrolled than courses that are of a different level. We do offer over 20 AP and ECE courses, and again, those, I don't want to say it artificially deflates a department's average class size number, but it certainly has an impact.
Jody.
And Tom, some of the classes, those are really low. Are those the classes the teachers are taking an extra class with, or no?
No, the data I provided the board does not include the extra class periods, because those aren't a given in any, those aren't guaranteed in any given year. We do have 28 of those classes, 28 sections being offered this year. Those are not included in these numbers because they're not contractually obligated to be taught.
And I appreciate that, because it can kind of sometimes shade or skew our conversation. But for example, in world language, the bottom world language it was cut off a bit in the Excel spreadsheet. It looks like Study Academy 10th grade. So are we staffing that with world language teachers?
I would ask Mr. Hauser to comment on that. Study Academy is the revamped study hall concept at the high school, whereby an old model might be you might have 80 kids in a particular location with 2 adults and the kids are doing homework. Study Academy is a more focused intervention.
So is that considered a teaching period?
I would ask Mr. Hauser to comment on that.
Study Academies, You'll notice that if they're on your list, they're going to show up in a number of departments.
Yeah.
That is a duty assignment in addition to the full teaching load that a teacher would have. And that is a 9th and 10th grade study hall where the teacher is working with them on executive function, study skills, and providing them tutoring. So we do have a couple of more language teachers, a number of English teachers, a number of social studies teachers, and science teachers, all study staff.
So as we kind of culled this, that should have gone into the 6th period assignments, which would be in lieu of a duty.
No,
So it's not a core teaching assignment, Mim, it's a 6th period assignment.
Gotcha.
Jody?
On page, it says 15 at the top. Why did we take out the 9th grade PE athletic experience and the 10th grade athletic experience?
Could you just tell me what page, is it the PE department?
Yeah, it says 15 up at the top.
Gotcha.
We had students in it last year, but this year we're not. Nothing. Offer it?
Or if I could?
Sure.
Okay. This year we've added a new offering, Unified PE, which is a course for a number of our more significant physical or intellectual PE students. And we're looking for a large group of physical tutors who are going to be true role models as juniors and seniors in that class. And the students who historically have taken that, the other course you had asked about, are all taking Unified PE this year. The athletic experience was a course where the talented junior or senior could sign up and basically serve as teacher's aid in
For the 9th and 10th graders?
And it's a great learning experience for kids who are thinking about education or a career in coaching or anything in fitness. And we found that those kids this year really wanted to be involved in these.
Well, that's a great idea.
And that's at the bottom of your right-hand column is the Unified PE.
So as the unified PE concept has grown from the middle school, there's been a need to really add that to the high school.
Thanks.
And these numbers in PE, following up on Jody's question, we're going to have a half position, 0.5 FTE cut, correct?
No, that 0.5 is in social studies. There is a cut due to a retirement at the middle school.
Okay.
So the reduction in PE is at the middle school,
Middle school.
not the high school.
Great.
Other questions?
What would, if we dropped one FTE teacher at a secondary level, what would be the reduction in our total budget line?
Yeah, so you have to, it's obviously going to be the least senior member
Right.
of the department, and once you factor in unemployment, exposure and put it back in, take, say, master's step 5 teacher, and back out. Joe, unemployment is currently...
Yeah, I'll give you an exact number once you identify
Just
someone.
pick someone.
20...
So, the first person out makes $52,331, and then we would lose about $15,000 unemployment. Net, you'd save about $37,000.
And a percentage point?
37,000.
0.001?
0.01.
0.01, sorry.
Okay.
And I guess,
Thank you.
Mim, to kind of
You don't have to talk any further.
articulate that, so where we found an opportunity at the middle school for social studies, we did look at the high school's numbers, and we said, well, this is the time to now reduce half a section at the high school to put into the middle school to kind of mitigate any unemployment exposure
Right.
and to keep our faculty whole, because there has been a long-standing tradition of reductions through attrition. And so we really are looking at the changes at the secondary level that way as our primary thrust before we consider reduction in force.
Any other questions? Class size or just the entire instructional services series?
Should I just ask one, are we pretty competitive and comparable to East Line, Madison, as far as the number of courses you have per discipline, for instance, in math, and I'm looking at social studies, we have a lot of classes. Are we reading what everybody else is offering? Or
So, just to speak about the social studies, and then I know we have maybe Kirk who could speak to Madison, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we have an administrator from this line that maybe could give insight greater than I could. But generally speaking, when we've done some curricular revisions, it's really been to engage kids in more opportunities for course selection. So the Social Studies Department was our first kind of salvo into this journey, where we really, an example, you need 2 years of world history. So when we did the curriculum review, the department says we're struggling so much to teach research skills and do the content. So well, they're both important. One of the members of the faculty said, well, could we break up world language into 6 different semester offerings? There's still a graduation requirement to do 4. So it's the notion of going deep into a content area, providing the deep research skills, as opposed to trying to cover the breadth of all the different topics of world language. World history, sorry. And so we have made a number of choices to break up what we would classically consider year-long courses into semesters to give kids some more choice. And then potentially, in social studies, kids could have electives now so if they're really into that field, they could take all 6 opportunities in lieu of like study halls or other things. So that's really been the design when it came to social studies. Science picked up on that, because if you want to go into be a kind of a phlebotomist or something, then maybe you need like heavy bio full year, but chem light maybe like the semester. And so we've tried to make those opportunities for course, for career and college pathways. So you have to look at kind of like the semesters as like 2 opportunities for one.
But for instance, I'm looking at, first of all, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 different categories for social studies, although some of them are redundant with an A and a B section kind of thing. But there's one section of the Middle Ages that could very easily be combined, because your average, there's 4 sections, and your average is only 12 years in those sections. And there's an 8, a 13, a 7, and a 20. Why wouldn't we just offer 2 sections of that?
Yeah. So
It could be dependent upon the time of classes that the student has other parts of the day.
But maybe it's time for us to start looking at more than just that one particular one, because I think there's one on every page like that, and we ought to consolidate those, and maybe they'll all wash out, so that, not that I think it's wonderful that kids are getting pretty much a private education at that point when you've got 8 kids in a class, but I don't know that we can afford that.
Sure.
The examples you're using, which are excellent ones, are all from social studies, and that was where we did determine that we could stand to lose half an FTE. So that concern we mentioned is actually being addressed in our staffing plan for next year.
But it's not reflected here.
So it's in your budget though.
Okay.
These are
just to give you also,
Oh, but I'm looking at this.
yeah, so
17, 18.
Marcia,
For
18,
19, sorry.
Yeah.
You know what happens when you're retired? Time is...
That's okay.
for Park Lane,
Yeah.
we did kind of like last year's and then this year's schedule,
Right.
and same with the high school. We know we're going to make some changes, but to forecast what kids might be signing up for what schedule, where it is in the schedule, to model this out at the high school level is impossible to predict. So we really just gave you 2 years of solid data.
I got you. And I really was looking at it as, I really was off base there. I was looking at it as next year.
No, and as Mr. Hauser pointed out, we are reducing half of an FTE in social
I
studies.
apologize. On my error.
But as an example, let's just use social studies because that's the example we're talking about. Could you feasibly, for next year, to Vim's point, and the area course offerings, could you, from all of these things that you sent us, if you dropped a course from each one, and I know it sounds terrible, but if you dropped a course from each one, social studies you dropped an offering, science you dropped an offering, and then you're upping these class sizes by 1 or 2 kids to get to the number. Because I'm just looking from the other end at the number if you took a little something from each thing. And another example to piggyback that, I looked at the coaches. I get the coaches, I understand the coaches, but if you dropped one thing from the coaches out of their schedule and they picked up a teaching assignment, they picked up something else that they weren't there, taking the coaches, taking one from each thing, looking at that percentage, not you lose, but that kicks you up. That's less 4. It's less 4 to get you to 0 to the number. And I'm just throwing paint on the wall.
So just on the social studies piece, Chris, I'm sorry, I was going to say, because we're reducing a half-time section, that's really 3 classes from the social studies core. So for your modeling, you could almost just cherry pick 3 sections out of social studies that won't happen next year because we've reduced half an FTE of social studies. So that's how that would play out.
And maybe I'm not completely understanding what you're saying. I would worry about the long-term viability of staffing a district with a bunch of .8 teachers by reducing a class here or a class there. I just worry about our ability to recruit and maintain staff if we've got X amount of teachers at .8. I understand your point, but from a recruitment and retention perspective, I would be concerned.
And to answer Marcia's question earlier, and I don't mind being put on the spot since you brought up East Line, we're a little bit bigger school, so it's a little bit different, but Waterford does not offer as many courses as you know.
And all this work?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And also, as somebody who's done master schedule stuff before, when you start pulling classes like that, you run the risk of more kids being in study halls.
Thank you, Deb. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I think next up would be employee benefits.
Support services?
Right.
I'm willing to jump ahead of you.
17 on the bottom right, yes?
Yes.
16, that's on 16 and 17.
Correct. Okay, support services. Questions? Observations? Desires? Jody?
I meant to ask this last week. At the middle school, we're down 1 secretary.
We are.
Now, that's because of enrollment, or that's
That is, it became open through attrition, and the middle school, after discussing with Mr. Sachs, there's down X amount of students over the last couple of years, and based on enrollment and reassignment of duties, that. So, to answer your question, the short answer is yes, based on enrollment.
Okay. Where was the secretary?
In the front office.
The front
So,
office.
we went from 2 main office secretaries to 1.
Okay.
Anyone else? Tom, can I go to employee benefits?
We can now do school benefits.
Jody?
Just one more question. The secretary that, now Building and Grounds is sharing a secretary with technology.
Technically with food services, but there's a secretary in the business office that supports IT. But we made some adjustments to an individual schedule during the course of this year between food services and Building and Grounds.
Okay, so Building and Grounds does have a secretary now.
Several hours a week, not Joe, 10 hours, or Jay's here.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be 15 hours a week.
15
And then
hours.
during the summer, it's heavier, right? 'Cause, food
Does
service.
he or she go across the street, or do they
Yeah.
stay here?
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Jay doesn't like electronics.
I don't blame him, I don't either.
Any other questions? Okay, how about contracted services? Everyone comfortable? Okay, transportation.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Basically, keep track of,
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah, I have a question. Tom, you were gonna check in on the insurance numbers? Do you have those yet?
So, we did meet this week on health insurance numbers, and what we had budgeted and presented last week still holds.
Okay.
So,
This is, I know, different insurance, but it's...
yes, now it's sparked that question. Thank you for reminding me.
Good.
Do we put out the insurance out to bid, or do we have to take whoever the town decides to take?
We do, and Joe can...
Yeah, I mean, it's a
acquire
cooperative
property
thing.
and liability.
It has not gone out to bid in a while. So, I'm sorry, are you talking about health insurance or?
No, the property. Oh, where are we? I thought...
No, we're on
Liability.
property insurance.
Yeah.
Right,
Property and liability.
So liability auto property, we're also with the town, we're with a consortium called CCM or KERMA. So no, we typically do not collectively bid that, or competitively bid that. But KERMA's a pretty good organization. There's 169 towns in the state. I think they're in 120 of them. It's essentially a not-for-profit insurance company.
CCM is Connecticut Conference on Municipalities. It's the organization, so we buy into that consortium.
Okay, communications. Tuition.
I'm assuming this number might be a little more fluid once everything comes out in the wash, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, it's a projection, specifically with the magnet schools. Those are basically projected on 3-year rolling averages. Special ed is a little more definitive in that we know we have IEP data and things like that. With that said, that there's some unpredictability with that because we never know when a student is going to move in or not. But specifically with the magnet schools, those tend to be based on 3-year averages.
Sure. Okay.
Jody.
Tom, have we heard anything more about Learn Out North, a special ed school with us dollars? Would that help us financially?
So yes, they are moving forward with
Yeah.
building that. They're going to consolidate some of their Eastern Connecticut special ed programs in New London. It won't help us tuition-wise. We might save a few dollars on transportation in that instead of transporting kids, we're now transporting to one location. And there might be some opportunities to work with other communities who are passing Waterford on the way to New London.
But they won't be offering any of the programs that some of these more costly schools?
My understanding is they're not developing new programs. It's more consolidating their existing programs. And we certainly continue to work hard under Mrs. Malone's leadership to make sure we're building robust in-district special ed programs to keep kids in district whenever we can. The autism program and now the new sensory room, which is a part of that at Great Neck.
Amanda?
Yes, on page 41, tuition other public, we're requesting $502,258, it's 20%, 20.87. Just wondered.
So that is mainly due to special ed outplacements. That is a special ed cost factor that's based on increased rates of existing placements, IEPs, and LEARN's rates have gone up considerably over the last couple of years, so that reflects increases in LEARN rates as well.
So it'd be like medically fragile or things that just need that extra level of care.
Jody?
When does one let you know they're gonna go up in their rates? Is it right before school starts, or?
Kathy would be a better expert on that. I can tell you that
July and August, right?
So that's when we have our budget all done.
During the summer, but we try to project that it would probably be raised because it has been every year. Include about a 2.5 to 3%. And that's generally been in the ballpark.
Thanks.
Any other tuition questions? Other purchase services?
This increase in the field trip, is that something you're going to see every year, or is it just a one-off thing? So this is a one-time adjustment, so we lost elementary field trips in our budget, I don't know if it's 12 or 15 years ago. We made a concerted effort with the social studies curriculum, you may recall last spring, the focus for the C3 is to have an inquiry approach, so the lesson design was kind of more in the class, a field experience, so this is really for those kind of admission fees, if it's going to be a universal trip, and then to some trips like up to Hartford to maybe see the state capitol, which would be grounded in the elementary curriculum, we may need some transportation costs. But the thought would be, once we build this, unless admission fees go up dramatically, that would be kind of then a built-in cost for those assured experiences, which would be like 1 or 2 field experiences per grade level, and usually one of them is a free one because it's a local one. Like first graders come here to the town hall.
Any other questions? Instructional supplies. Jody?
I had a question about the pre-K program. We're not going to get any instructional supplies for them this year? This coming year? It's on page 52.
Yep. We did robustly purchase this year for the 2 pre-K programs and funded that adequately. We could potentially purchase some of those supplies in this current budget year.
Okay, because I was wondering if our enrollment goes up next year because we wanted to possibly add a teacher.
Yeah, no, we've budgeted a 3rd pre-K room, but we're confident with our current funding that's supported, so we did not increase pre-K supplies.
Have we gotten more students since the school year started?
Yeah, we have. Kathy can certainly speak to that. We're up to 39. Certainly, or Michelle, certainly. So 38.
So there's 21, 21?
2020.
Oh, 20.
That really necessitates the third section.
Projecting 50 for next year.
Right, that's what I said, okay.
And that will be 3 sections.
That would be 3 sections.
Anything else? Okay. Operations, maintenance, and buildings. completeness of our initial review is beginning to show, I think. Okay, how about water use?
Marcia?
Marcia. The mysterious statement problem.
I didn't want to embarrass you.
Greg, looking at the electricity at Quaker Hill, is there a reason it's exponentially a little bit higher?
Yeah, so we have a solar panel contract for the solar panels on Quaker Hill, so the cost of those are built into the electricity rate. Certainly Joe could add more information.
Yeah, so it's also a different setup. I mean,
It is a different footprint.
It doesn't look like it was really built. It's an interesting building.
Yeah.
It wasn't built energy efficiently. Is my point.
Okay. Textbooks, library books, and other supplies.
The $15,000 for the elementary schools, are those trade books for Reader's Workshop? The textbooks at $15,000?
So,
For the three elementaries, are those trade books for the
yes, so
Reader's
textbooks
Workshop?
would be, yes, and then any consumables. So in the primary grades, when you have some books that the kids write in.
Oh, right, okay.
And you have to buy those as well.
Gotcha.
How about equipment? Any questions or concerns? Dues and fees? Any general questions or comments for the administration? Public questions or comments? You're a wonderful audience. Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
For a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
It's funny, the water usage actually.
Yeah.